I'm not going to pretend I didn't see this coming from a mile away. When you spend 28 years watching your parents treat your older brother like he's some kind of gift from heaven while they look at you like you're an expired coupon stuck to a refrigerator magnet, you develop a pretty strong immunity to disappointment. But even I wasn't ready for the call that came on my birthday. Daniil. Sweetheart. We need to talk. My mom said in that voice. You know the one. It's the voice a vice principal uses when they're about to tell you there's been a call to the principal's office, while also trying to sound like a caring mother who's part kindergarten teacher, part tutor, coaxing a child to open the door. I was sitting in my one-bedroom rental on Krasnoarmeyskaya Street, a rundown 5-story building with flowery wallpaper left by previous tenants eating leftover dumplings I'd cooked in a pot for yesterday's breakfast. Clearly, this was the peak of success for a freelance graphic designer still building his personal brand. The 370-square-foot apartment came with Savita furniture and central heating that was either hot as a sauna or cold as a wine cellar. Mom. What's going on? I asked. Your father and I have discussed it and decided to help Timer with a down payment on an apartment. She replied. I froze, waiting for her to continue. Nothing. Okay. I'm happy for Timur. I said. We're going to give him $200,000. I almost dropped my phone into the pot. That would have been tragic. That was literally my next 2 meals. $200,000. Yes. We want to help our children become independent. Mom added. Our children plural. Obviously for show. So, just to be clear, you're giving my brother $200,000 for an apartment, and I get to breathe fresh air? I asked. The silence that followed was the kind of silence perfected by people who know how to write scientific papers and defend dissertations. Daniil. You understand. You're at a different stage in life than Timer. You've made different choice. He has a stable job, a serious relationship, his own plans. You're still finding yourself. At 28, I knew exactly where I was. I was sitting in my underwear, eating cold dumplings, watching my self-respect drain away with the cloudy dumpling broth. We know you'll understand. After all, you're very independent. Independent, turns out it's just another word for forgotten. But who am I to correct my own mother? That's the thing about family disappointments. They don't come from a single shock. They come from the slow accumulation of small wounds. Tiny traumas that eventually form one giant scar. And that scar took the shape of the words failed to meet expectations. Timur is 3 years older than me. And from the moment he could walk, he was the golden child. His blonde hair shone brilliantly in the sunlight. He was an excellent student and an athlete. My mom called him her sunshine. My blonde hair, she politely called it practical. Even my hair was a disappointment. Timur played soccer for the district team. I played in the music school band. Timur dated the prettiest girl in class. I dated my computer. Timur graduated with honors from the Arizona State University School of Management. I studied fine arts and paid for it with student loans. But what haunted me most was that I tried. I tried so damn hard. When I was 15, I entered a national poster design competition. I barely slept for 3 months, just drawing constantly. In the end, I placed second out of 3,000 entries. My dad's reaction, a brief glance. At least I tried. When Timur placed third in a regional swimming competition, my dad bought him a new laptop. I'm not a vengeful person. Okay. Maybe a little vengeful. I'm like a craft beer from a local brewery with a complex bitter aftertaste. A hint of resentment. And a lingering finish. Whatever. But Mom wasn't always like this. When I was little, before Timur became the golden boy, Mom used to sit next to me while I drew. Dish soap commercials. Cartoons on TV. And Mom saying, "One day, you'll be a famous artist." I was 7 when I drew a dragon. Objectively, it was just a scribble. But I was proud of my work. Mom hung it on the refrigerator and told Dad to look. "Our Danny is going to be an artist," she said, her voice full of pride. This was before my brother started winning. After that, my drawings moved from the refrigerator tower to the art wall in the pantry. That's a fancy name for the place where you keep things you hate to throw away but also don't want to look at. The academy was supposed to be my revenge. But I graduated in 2018. When it turned out, a designer was someone who made contextual advertising banners in exchange for food. My first job paid $2,500 a month. The requirements were simple: 5 years of experience and knowledge of programs that hadn't even been invented yet. I lasted 8 months there before we got optimized. That's corporate speak for being thrown out on the street. After that, I went freelance. That's unemployment these days when you want to sound dynamic at class reunions. But I didn't give up. I took any clients I could, design logos for network marketing schemes, flyers for garage, rock bands, and cover images for Telegram channels with cat pictures. It was all slow and painful, but at least I was building something. Gradually, I started getting decent clients. I started charging reasonable rates. By 28, I was making enough to live on. Not luxurious, not impressive, but it was what I needed. Then Timur announced he was buying an apartment. This happened at Sunday family dinner, a tradition my mom insisted on. Even though we all lived in different parts of the city. Roasted ribs with mashed potatoes, herring under a fur coat, tea with Napoleon cake from the deli. We pretended to be a happy family for 2 hours every week. Zhenya and I went to see an apartment. Timur said, passing me the Olivier salad. He was always passing me something. Such a model. Son, it's a beautiful new building in a great area. But the down payment is just too high. My father perked up like a dog hearing the word walk. How much, he asked. The apartment is $650,000. I need at least 30% down to get a decent mortgage rate without government assistance. My brother replied. I saw my parents' eyes meet. The entire conversation was summarized in that one glance. What if we help, my dad offered. Timur's face lit up. Dad, I can't let you do that. You didn't even ask. We're offering. Dad interrupted, looking like he'd just solved world hunger. It's time to help our son build his future. Our son. Singular. Mom looked at me. Clearly her conscience was eating at her. Daniel, when will you be ready to settle down? I'm fine. I replied. Honestly, I'm happy for Timur. Timur looked embarrassed. Thanks. Dan, I'm sure one day you'll get there too. Of course. When I'm no longer a complete loser. I thought. I smiled, trying to show I was joking. But everyone knew it wasn't really a joke. This happened 3 months before my birthday. 3 months of Sunday dinners talking about Timur's apartment, like we were discussing launching a rocket to Mars. 3 months of our family resources being redirected elsewhere. So when Mom called on my actual birthday to officially announce I'd be getting nothing, I wasn't surprised. What surprised me was something else. There's a housewarming party next Sunday. Timur's moving into his new apartment. You'll come, right? Mom said. A party for my brother who got my money on my birthday. Actually, I have plans. I replied. Oh. What's going on? I was actually planning to eat ice cream and rethink my life choices. But instead I said out loud, meeting friends? Well, that's too bad. We'll miss you. Maybe we can celebrate your birthday the week after. Sure. Mom. Next week. We both knew there wouldn't be a next week. I hung up and sat in the silence of my one-bedroom apartment. 28 years old. 370 square feet. A bank account in the red. A family that thought about me once a month. And only when they needed a reason to feel successful. And suddenly, everything changed. No drama. No inspiring music. Just a quiet understanding. That's it. Enough. Stop trying to win their approval. Stop going to places that only reminded me of my own worthlessness. Stop being the backdrop for my brother's success story. I wasn't going to make a scene or write angry posts on social media. I simply decided to stop. Stop calling. Stop visiting. Stop investing in a relationship that only went one way. Let them have their golden son and their picture-perfect home. I'd build something else. I didn't know what yet. But it would be mine. The first week of silence was strange. I kept catching myself wanting to send Mom a meme or text her about the weather. It was muscle memory. Formed over 28 years of trying to maintain a relationship that never really existed. By the second week, I noticed they weren't texting either. Not one message. Are you okay? Or why haven't you reached out? Just silence. And that told me everything I needed to know. Timur texted once. You good? Mom said. You disappeared. I replied. Everything's fine. Just busy with work. Congrats on the apartment. He liked it. That was the depth of our brotherhood. You know what? No one tells you about cutting off your family. The hardest part isn't missing them. The hardest part is realizing how little you actually miss them. I kept waiting for this huge void. This painful loss. But instead, there was relief. Like I'd been carrying a backpack full of bricks for years and suddenly realized I could just take it off. But freedom doesn't pay rent. And my one-bedroom apartment still cost money. I threw myself into work with the kind of manic energy that either leads to a breakthrough or a mental breakdown. In my case, it led to the first one. I was designing a logo for a small coffee shop. Nothing special. Just a local business trying to look respectable. The owner, Myron, was a former IT specialist who'd quit his office job to pursue his dream of roasting coffee beans for hipsters downtown. We spent weeks tweaking and redrawing layouts. I wanted authentic but modern, he said. Simple but meaningful. Bold but elegant. Translation: I don't know what I want, but I'll tell you when something's wrong. But something clicked on version 17. I created this brutally minimalist design with clean lines and white space that somehow perfectly captured the essence of his brand. Myron called at 11 p.m. the moment he got the mock-up. Daniel, this is it. This is exactly what we need. What's this going to cost me, he asked. I was originally thinking $3,000. It was already cheap for the amount of work I'd put in. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the rush of finally creating something worthwhile, or the lingering anger at my parents, or maybe I was just tired of undervaluing myself. $4,500. I said, waiting for him to negotiate. Done. Listen. Next year I'm opening another location. I want you to handle the whole branding package. Signage. Menus. Packaging. Interior design, the works. I'm thinking around $55,000. Make it happen. I tried to keep my voice steady. Yeah. I can work that out. I replied. Perfect. But I'll need you to set up an LLC. For self-employed contractors. That amount exceeds the limit. Obviously. Everything will be officially contracted with a business bank account, he said. After the call, I sat in my one-bedroom apartment, staring at the wall. Over $500,000, no. Wait, $55,000 for work I actually loved. For a client who valued what I did. It was both a confession and sweet revenge at the same time. I had to rush to register as an LLC. Self-employed contractors couldn't earn more than $24,000 a year. And I was already pushing that limit. A simple 6% tax rate wasn't too bad for a project like this. That project led to others. Turns out, when you stop wasting emotional energy trying to win your parents' approval, you have a lot of energy left for actual work. I doubled my income in 6 months. I wasn't some oligarch. But now I could buy groceries at the nice store instead of the discount one. I moved from the dump on Krasnoyarskaya to a decent one-bedroom in a new building with its own kitchen. A real revolution. I even bought a new couch from a furniture store. Not off Craigslist. By month 9, something strange happened. I started waking up in a good mood. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And that was enough. I started going to the gym. I know it sounds cliche. Like what everyone does after a breakup. Except I broke up with my family, which somehow felt even sadder. But it felt good to do something just for myself. Plus, turns out anger makes for a great workout. Around month 10, I met a girl named Sasha at a coffee shop. She was sitting at the next table with her laptop, warming her hands and cursing the Wi-Fi. Turns out she was a copywriter with the same problems: freelance work, unstable income, and loneliness. We started meeting up for work, first at coffee shops, then at the library, and finally at each other's places. At first, there was nothing romantic about it. Just two people who understood what it was like to work from home, eat canned meat at 3 p.m., and call it lunch. Then one evening, we were sitting at her place, drinking tea and eating cookies. And she just looked at me. I really like you. You know that I'm serious. I just freeze up. Like an old computer. Emotional restraint was an understatement for my communication skills. But Sasha just laughed. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know. We started dating 2 weeks later. She was cheerful, ambitious, and completely understood why I didn't talk about my family without making a big deal out of it. When I finally told her the whole story about the $200,000 and the birthday call, she just shook her head. That's insane. I'm sorry they treated you like that. No, maybe they had their reasons, or maybe they love you in their own way. Just a straight acknowledgement that everything was wrong. Revolutionary. A year had passed since I cut off my family. Sasha and I were sitting at breakfast, happy and slightly hungover from the night before, when my phone rang. Mom's name lit up the screen. I stared at it like it was a bomb. Are you going to answer? Sasha asked. I don't know. What do you think? Do you want to answer? She clarified. Part of me was curious. Part of me wanted to hear an apology, an admission that they'd been wrong. But the bigger part knew that wasn't going to happen. I let it go to voicemail. 5 minutes later, I listened to the message. Daniil. Sweetheart. It's Mom. We haven't heard from you in so long. Dad and I are worried. Your brother's worried too. Please call me back. We miss you. We miss you. After a year of silence. After Timer got $200,000 and I got nothing but disappointment, I deleted the message. What'd she say? Sasha asked. They miss me. Do you believe that I thought about it? I really thought about it. Did Mom miss me? Maybe. But like someone misses an old couch after redecorating, a vague feeling that something used to be there. No. I don't think so. I said. Sasha took my hand. Then don't call back. And I didn't. 2 weeks later, my brother called. I only answered out of curiosity. Dan. What's going on? Mom and Dad are freaking out. They said you won't call them back. He said. I've been busy. I replied. For a whole year. Yeah. Timer. A whole year. Silence. Then he said. Is this about the apartment I told them you needed help too? I said it wasn't fair. That surprised me. Of course he did. He was my brother. After all. But you know what they said. That you'd understand. That you're independent and don't need help. And you just accepted it. I asked. What was I supposed to do? Turn down $200,000. Fair point. And that made it even more infuriating. Listen. Just call Mom. She's driving me crazy. She thinks you're mad at them. I am mad at them. I replied. Yeah. Well. I don't know what to tell you. Figure it out. I gotta go. Zhenya's calling. Timur said and hung up before I could respond. I sat there. Phone in hand. Feeling those familiar emotions: anger, guilt, and always feeling like I wasn't enough. The rational part of me understood I have a right to be hurt. But the part of me that had been trained for 28 years to accommodate everyone else whispered, am I overreacting? Should I just call Sasha? Caught me in this state. Timer, she guessed. Mom said they're freaking out. He thinks I should call. I replied. Do you want to call? I don't know what I want. I just know one thing: I'm tired of shrinking myself for them. Then don't call. You don't have to give them access to your life just because they suddenly decided they need it. Sasha said. She was right. Of course she was right. But knowing something in your head and feeling it in your heart are two different things. I didn't call. Instead, I kept working. Building. Growing. I attracted new clients. Raised my rates again. And started turning down cheap projects. My new concept was simple: give myself permission to choose. By month 18, I'd saved enough to consider something that once seemed impossible: buying land. Not a house yet, but at least a piece of ground. A place that would be mine. A place I'd earned that my parents would never touch. At night, I scrolled through listings on Craigslist and Zillow, dreaming about what I'd build there. Not just literally, but figuratively, a life completely separate from a family that never valued me. Little did I know that dream would soon become something bigger, that my brother would drive past it, see it, and call my dad screaming. But that came later. The land was found by accident. Sasha and I weren't even looking for it. We just drove out to Bryansk Forest one weekend, woke up on a Saturday, and decided we needed to see trees taller than 5-story buildings. We'd been dating for 6 months by then. Things had gotten serious. But in a comfortable way, the kind where you're not embarrassed about snoring anymore. On the way back, we took a wrong turn. Google Maps suddenly froze. Sasha tried navigating with an atlas we'd bought at a gas station. We ended up on a dirt road toward Karachov, a place that had last seen pavement about 20 years ago. I think we're lost. Sasha said. We're not lost. We're exploring the area. I tried to stay optimistic, even though there was no signal and we'd passed the same abandoned barn twice. And then, around a bend, a wooden sign appeared. Land for sale. 5 acres. Overgrown meadow. More than enough for 2 people. You could build half a village there. It was at the edge, with a small river running through it. Old pine and spruce trees. The view was enough to paint a picture. Completely impractical. The road was a former logging trail. No utilities. Just wilderness. Development costs would run into hundreds of thousands. He still stopped. What's wrong? Sasha asked. I want to see it. I replied. Daniil. We're in the middle of nowhere. This is how horror movies start. But I got out of the car and walked along what used to be a road. Up close. The area was even better. There was a special kind of silence you only find in the forest. Not empty, but full of quiet sounds: birds singing, wind through the trees, a stream babbling. I stood there and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Possibility. The number on the sign was faded, but I still took a picture. I'm gonna call. Are you serious? Sasha asked when I got back. Maybe. I probably can't afford it, but I'll call first. I called the next day. The owner, Fyodor Semyonovich, was about 70, with a voice like sandpaper. Interested in the land, maybe. How much do you want? 12,000. I almost dropped my phone. Apparently, this was becoming a habit. 5 acres. I repeated. But it's gardening cooperative land. Son, that's a lot of money. I'll tell you right now, you can't just live on garden land. Power runs along the border. You can connect, but you'll have to install the pole yourself. Water? You'll need to drill a well. All the paperwork is clean though. The land has no liens. We've owned it since 1958. Now I'm old. I can't do anything with it anymore. The land just sits there. Overgrown. Better to let young people have it than let it go to waste. 12,000. Less than what my parents gave my brother. Almost double what I had. I'd saved 9,000. Part of it from that $55,000 order. The rest I'd worked for. Saved. And saved. Could you take 11,000 if I can't get a mortgage right now? I asked. Son, I need 12,000. My granddaughters are in school. And medical treatment isn't free these days. But if we close immediately, 11,500 for everything. And you cover the state fees and paperwork yourself. Deal? Deal? I replied. I couldn't blame a 70-year-old man who needed money to live. I thanked him and hung up. I was disappointed, but not surprised. I was 3,000 short. But I couldn't stop thinking about that land. I dreamed about it. I imagined what I'd build there. It didn't even have to be a house, just something. A studio. A workshop. A place that would be completely and undeniably mine. Sasha found me looking at the photos for the 100th time. Is this really what you want? She asked. It doesn't matter. I can't afford it anyway. What if I help? I stared at her. Would I have some savings? Not much. About 3,500. We could do it together. Sasha. That's your money. You can't just, and we've talked about living together anyway. This could be our project. Something we build together. Literally. She said. I wanted to agree immediately. But something stopped me. What if things don't work out? I asked. She paused. Then said. Then we'll settle it like adults. Make everything legal shares. Division agreement. Protect the investments. But, Dania, you can't spend your whole life being afraid to try just because you're scared of failing. You've been doing that with your family for years. She was right. Painfully right. When did she get so good at hitting me right in the heart? Okay. Let's try it. I agreed. We called Fyodor Semyonovich that same day. We offered 11,000. All we could put together. He thought about it for 3 days. I didn't sleep for 3 days. I checked my email every 5 minutes. Like that would somehow help him decide faster. Finally, he called. All right? Son. 11,000. But state fees and paperwork are yours. Deal? I exhaled. Deal. The process took 2 months. Documents. Verification through the registry. No encumbrances. No mortgages. Everything clean. Surveys. Certificates. Extracts. More paperwork. Turns out buying land is basically endless paperwork and signing documents until your hand goes numb. Sasha and I drafted an agreement with a lawyer. The split was proportional to investment, 70% mine, 30% hers. If we broke up, we'd buy out each other's share or sell the lot and split it. Very romantic. I know. But necessary. The closing day was surprisingly normal. We met Fyodor Semyonovich at the registry office. Signed. Stamped it. Shook hands. As we were leaving, he handed me the very sign that read land for sale. I'll sign it as a keepsake. He smiled. You deserve it. Good luck with the land. And that's how I became a landowner. 5 acres of possibility. I stood there after he left, holding those documents in my hands, and felt something I hadn't felt since I was a kid drawing dragons. Pride. The first few months were brutal. Every weekend, Sasha and I came out to clear weeds, brush, and mountains of trash the previous owners had left. The work was backbreaking, dirt under my nails constantly. But there was this strange satisfaction to it. I started planning. I sketched out a small house, nothing fancy. About 600 square feet that I could build myself with the help of YouTube tutorials and sheer stubbornness. Then, a better idea came up. One of my clients was an architect named Yaroslav, a young guy who designed eco-homes. He'd just opened his own studio after leaving a big firm. He needed real-world examples for his portfolio. Over coffee, I told him about the project. And his eyes lit up, the way all architects' eyes do when they see a chance to work on something interesting. Let's create a showcase project together. He offered. I design. You build my brand and promote my studio for the next year. We document the construction process and use it both ways. Win-win. Yaroslav. I don't have money for anything fancy. I objected. Who said anything about fancy? He laughed. Compact. Efficient. Eco-friendly. We'll do everything right. We'll minimize costs. I'll prove you don't need millions from your parents to live well. That last sentence got my attention. He knew my story. By that point, all my close friends did. We spent the next 6 months designing it together. A small house, 600 square feet. A loft bedroom and a composting toilet. For winter, we were considering a septic system or at least a regular outhouse. Rainwater collection and solar panels enough for modest Tuesday power needs. It was more of an experiment and backup than real savings. In summer, they powered the fridge and constant electricity. In winter, they were less useful, but it still turned out cheaper than grid connection. A power line ran along the property border, connecting it, installing the pole, and formalizing all the regulations would cost about $10,000, plus 3 months of bureaucratic red tape. I asked for $15,000 upfront on Tuesday. That was more than enough for the house. Total budget $26,000, including the garden house construction permit and materials. After that, I could apply for exemptions under garden house laws. I'd saved about $6,000. Sasha added another $4,000. The rest had to come from a consumer loan at 22% annual interest. Highway robbery. But there was no other option. We laid the foundation in spring. I hired a crew for the foundation and framing. That was beyond my ability, even with YouTube tutorials, but I took on the interior finishing myself, learning at night and on weekends. Sasha helped as much as she could, mostly with painting. Myron from the coffee shop stopped by some Saturdays with his friends. They were handy guys, willing to help for shashlik and beer. Turns out it was the hardest physical work of my life. I lost 15 pounds, got blisters, and realized that construction is 90% swearing and 10% actual building. But slowly, painfully, it took shape. By fall of the following year, 2.5 years after cutting off my family, I had a small house. Tiny, simple, but finished and completely mine. Well, 70% mine. But still, the technical plan was ready. We stood in line at the registry to register it. Yaroslav took photos for his portfolio. The pictures were stunning. Golden hour. Light filtering through the pines. A house that looked like it stepped out of some glossy countryside lifestyle magazine, even though it cost a fraction of Timur's apartment. I posted one photo on social media and made it public. It was the first time I'd publicly mentioned the project. Just a photo of the house from the outside. No context. Caption: I built it myself. I was proud. Within an hour, I had more likes than any post I'd ever made. Within a day, the local design community asked permission to repost. Within a week, I got 3 inquiries from potential clients about similar projects. And somewhere along the way, my brother saw the post. He was hiking with friends on their way back. Took a wrong turn the same road Sasha and I had taken. He found himself on our dirt road. Saw my car parked by the gate. Stopped. Walked over. And saw the little house. Right then, he called Dad and yelled into the phone so loud I heard him from inside where I was installing cabinet handles. I walked outside. Timur was standing there with his phone, staring at my little house like it was a UFO. Our eyes met. I'll call you back, Dad. He told our father and hung up. Dan, what the hell is this? I looked back at my house. My cute little middle finger, 600 square feet of personal space. This is mine, I replied. Timur wasn't looking at me. But at the house, you built this with? Yeah, I did. But weren't you living in some bug-infested hole? Eating ramen. That was 2.5 years ago. Timur. But Mom and Dad gave you $200,000 and I got nothing. Are you okay? Turns out, when you stop wasting energy trying to win approval from people who don't care, you can accomplish a lot. His face showed pain. It's not fair, he muttered. What's not fair? I asked. When was the last time Mom and Dad cared about my work, my life? He went silent. I bought the land for $11,500. Built the house for $26,000. I did most of it myself. No handouts. Just did it, I said. Timur looked stunned. Dan, I didn't know. I thought you were still the failure, still the disappointment, I interrupted. Right then, Sasha stepped out. Everything okay, she asked. Sasha. This is Timur. My brother? Timur. Sasha. I introduced them. They shook hands awkwardly. Timur watched her walk back into the house. You bought land with your girlfriend, he asked. Mockingly. We made everything legal. It's called planning. Timur. Responsibility. Everything Dad said I couldn't do. It looked embarrassed. I told them you needed help too. He said. But you still took it. I replied. What was I supposed to do? Turn it down. Think about someone other than yourself. Maybe. I said coldly. Timur pulled out his phone. I'm calling Dad. He needs to see this. Timur. Don't. I tried to stop him. Dad. I'm at Dan's place. You need to come here. Now. Half an hour later. My dad's pickup pulled into the yard. Mom climbed out first. Looking confused and uncertain. Behind her was Dad. His face cold as usual. Daniil. What is this, Mom asked. 5 acres of land. My house. I calmly replied. Dad slowly walked closer, examining the solar panels and the whole structure. Where did you get the money to build this? Right here. Aren't you proud of me, even a little? How dare you do this without your parents? I saved, earned, and built it. I replied. But you thought I was struggling. I wasn't struggling. I was working and building without you. My father's voice grew keener. He was right. Tatiana. Look at this place. There was something new in Dad's voice. Not kite respect, but recognition. We gave Timur $200,000. And he bought an apartment like everyone else. But Daniil, he built this himself. He said. Timur looked offended. But Dad ignored him. Maybe I'd underestimated him. I didn't know what to say. I'd imagined this moment as a victory. But standing there, I just felt tired and sad. You should have called. My mom said. We were worried. Were you worried? Or were you embarrassed in front of friends that we don't talk? I asked. She flinched. That's cruel. What's cruel is giving my brother everything and me nothing. What's cruel is forgetting my birthday. What's cruel is treating me like I don't exist. We never started. Mom. She began, but stopped herself. Everyone knew it was true. I don't need your approval anymore. I don't need your money. I'm doing well. For the first time, I'm actually doing well. So what now? Timur asked. You're just abandoning us, maybe. Or maybe we can figure out how to build a relationship where I'm not the disappointment and you're not the favorite, where we're equals. Dad cleared his throat. Can I see inside? I glanced at Sasha through the window. She nodded. Come in. I said. I gave them a tour. I watched them realize this wasn't just a house. This was proof. Proof that I was capable, competent, and successful in my own way. When we stepped out onto the porch, the sun was setting behind the trees. I need to think about whether I want you back in my life, I said. And if I do, things will be different boundaries. Respect. And no comparisons. I understand. My dad nodded. Mom wanted to say something but stayed silent. Timur lingered after my parents left. Sorry, Dan, for taking so long. Sorry for not seeing you sooner, he said. Thank you, I replied. I mean it. Sasha ran out and hugged me after my brother drove away. You okay? Tired, but better. Sad and proud at the same time. That's okay. You did good today. We sat on the porch watching the sunset. My land. My house. My life built from zero. Despite everything. Maybe someday I'd welcome them back. Maybe we'd find a way to be a real family. But today, I just enjoy the fact that I didn't just build a house. I built a whole new life. Story 2. My parents always punished me just because my brother didn't have any friends. And he took it upon himself to prove why no one could stand him. But they still always stood up for him. And I was the one who got the short end of the stick. So one day, I had to do something drastic to finally get them to listen to me. Although in the end, it all worked out the other way around. The truth is, my parents treat my brother like a king. And today I want to tell you how karma finally caught up with them on my wedding day. Ever since I was a child, there were always 2 sets of rules in my house, one for my brother and one for me. All he had to do was say. Lily did whatever she wanted to do. And I was in trouble without anyone even asking. Ready to be scolded or even spanked. Sometimes so badly that I even had trouble walking properly. Once, when I was 7, He told my parents I'd broken one of his model airplanes. And even though I'd been at a friend's house all afternoon, they sent me to my room without dinner. But the worst part was that if he did something wrong, I was still the one who got punished. If I caught him in mischief, I'd get scolded for butting in where I wasn't supposed to. Family outings always went wherever he wanted, even on occasions that were supposedly for me. My high school graduation dinner, we ended up at his favorite seafood restaurant, even though they knew perfectly well I was allergic. And my dad just said, "Can I get a salad?" As he was growing up. I even missed those days when he'd just ignore me or get all cocky, because I soon started getting bruised from grabbing his punching bag. But everything started to change when I entered middle school. Little by little, his friends disappeared, either because they moved away or because they just couldn't stand him. I even found out he was already an outcast at school because we went to the same place. One day, during recess, I overheard some kids from his generation talking about him. "Oh, no. Mosky's a lost cause. Did you hear how he made fun of Professor Peterson's dead daughter yesterday?" I, meanwhile, was one of the well-liked ones. I wasn't the most popular, but I did have some real friends. When he realized that, it kind of burned him, and he made me even more of a target. He started making up more and more stories to get me punished. My parents would say things like, "Your brother says those kids are troublemakers. Oh, why can't you be happy staying home like your brother?" And of course, if I told them he was lying, they'd come out with the "he's older. He knows more than you think." The only reason I wasn't alone was because of my cousins who lived nearby. One day, I finally got the courage to tell the truth when I was invited to the mall. I took advantage of my parents' absence and spilled the beans. I told them straight out that I couldn't go out because I wasn't allowed to have friends at home. According to this, it was because my brother couldn't keep any. That spread like wildfire in the family. And then my aunts and uncles complained directly to my parents. "Is it true that they're punishing Lily because Mosky doesn't have any friends?" My Aunt Sarah asked my mom. Obviously, they punished me, according to them, for lying. And they didn't let me go out for weeks. But after that, something changed. My parents relaxed a little, but their reputation as a perfect family was already ruined. Since everyone found out about my brother's social failure, he asked to transfer to a different school, and my parents agreed, even though it was more expensive and farther away. But he still never forgave me for flouting him like that. If anything, his abuse only got worse. Now even his new friends came over to the house to bully me. They made fun of my looks, hid things from me, or purposely ignored me. One day they even put salt in my water and started laughing when I spit it out. My mom just laughed, saying, "Oh, it's just kids. Honey, they're just playing." In the end, my cousins were my saving grace, especially Josley, who became like a sister to me. And their house was the only place where I felt like a normal family. It continued like this until I turned 16 and had my first boyfriend. For some reason, my parents wanted to meet him, even though I wasn't keen. "We have to make sure he's good enough for our little girl," my dad said. And if I really felt like he cared, I would have even taken it as something nice. But it really wasn't like that. My boyfriend did want to meet them, so I took him one day. And that's when I realized my brother was even worse than I thought. It turns out that during the visit, my boyfriend Tyler came out all freaked out and told me that my brother had cornered him alone in the kitchen wearing only shorts and no shirt, and that he had even flirted with him shamelessly while badmouthing me and suggesting they go out. Tyler felt so uncomfortable that he came looking for me as soon as he could to get out of there. "Meg, I don't mean to scare you, but your brother was hitting on me," he whispered, his eyes wide. "He said I was wasting my time with you, that he could teach me how to have fun." Then he touched my arm and even winked. It was incredibly awkward. I was so shocked I couldn't even believe it. But later, my brother told my parents a completely different story, telling them that Tyler had wanted to hook up with him, but that he, out of loyalty to me, had turned him down. Who do you think my parents believed? "How dare you bring that guy into our house?" my mom yelled that night. "Your brother was so upset he could barely tell us what happened." "That's not true," I protested. "Tyler would never do that." "Are you saying your brother is lying?" my dad said, slamming his fist on the table. He was crying. Lily. Crying. And even though my boyfriend wasn't perfect, at that moment I believed him because there was a very simple reason. My brother, Golan, had nothing. He and my parents have always been overweight. They expressed their affection by giving him lots of food, almost always for him. I was always thin, partly because my favorite punishment was not letting me eat dinner. It's not that looks mattered more than personality, but between my brother's attitude and how badly he behaved. Not even I, who at the time had zero self-esteem. I could have imagined that my boyfriend would risk our relationship for someone like him. Anyway, my parents forbade me from seeing that horrible boy again. I made several attempts to continue secretly dating, but it was impossible with the surveillance they had on me. So I finally broke up with Tyler. He never wanted to come near my house again. And at school he told his friends that my family was really weird. The exact same thing happened to my next boyfriend. My brother tried to pick him up. Guts unpacking. And then he played the victim. When I pointed out that it was always the same story, my parents said the problem was my poor taste in partners and that I always fell for guys who were interested in me. That's when I decided to give up on relationships. In high school, rumors started spreading that I only had casual encounters because I kissed guys. But I never wanted to make it official. Fortunately, my family never heard about it. I always laid my cards on the table. I can't bring you over. And we can't be seen together too often. My family is complicated. Most people accepted this treatment. And I more or less lived my teenage years like any other girl. Meanwhile, my brother was flaunting his only boyfriend, like he was the eighth wonder. And my parents treated him like royalty. They invited him to dinner, bought him gifts, and even included him in family photos. All the while wondering why I couldn't find someone decent like him. When the guy suddenly stopped showing up, the story changed in a flash. Now it turns out he was a manipulator who had taken advantage of my poor brother. Then, I learned from an acquaintance that his boyfriend had caught him flirting with his roomie from the whole world. That's how the differences in everything went. My brother was allowed to spend a fortune and had super flexible hours, while I was totally screwed. If I complained about the unfairness, my parents would say he's older. But when I got to their age, nothing changed. When I brought up the subject again, lest they either flatly denied having said anything or shielded themselves by saying they couldn't trust me like they could him. When my brother graduated from high school, he was accepted to a random college without scholarships or honors. But my parents threw a huge party with a caterer, decorations, and even a photographer. "We're so proud of you, son," they said, thrilled. The first in his family to go to college. They promised to pay for everything, even an off-campus apartment, because they said the dorms didn't allow him to study well. I was just relieved he was moving far away. But the truth is, my situation didn't improve much because he came back almost every weekend and somehow always ended up getting into my business or causing trouble. About a year later, my mom called me for a serious talk about my graduation. She explained that since they were paying for my brother's college, they couldn't afford mine, and that it was better if I got a job when I finished high school and waited until he finished to see if they could help me. Oh, and if I wanted to continue living in the house, I'd have to pay rent, utilities, and even buy my things. "We just want you to learn to be responsible," she said with a worried expression that was more fake than anything. One of those she'd already rehearsed. "Mosk is pursuing a degree, but you've always been more practical." When I mentioned student loans, he came out with the idea that we care too much about your future to let you make bad financial decisions. "We'll decide if going into debt for college is worth it." Scholarships were never mentioned. They didn't even know how my grades were doing. And they never believed in what I could achieve anyway. I just calmly replied, "It's fine." My mom was shocked by my reaction and even started to cry, probably hoping I'd make a scene so she could justify why they never helped me study. But the truth is, after years of putting up with their bad parenting, I didn't expect anything from them anymore. I secretly prepared for college on my own, using all those hours alone at home to study hard. For me, college was the only way out. My guidance counselor, Mrs. Peterson, was the first adult who truly believed in me. She helped me with the paperwork, scholarships, and all the paperwork, without my parents knowing. As graduation approached, I worked my butt off and got a full scholarship to a highly regarded public university. I knew my brother would try to convince my parents to stop me. So I announced my acceptance on social media at the same time I told them in person. I even thanked them in the post. I'm so grateful to my parents for their support as I prepare to enter the state university this fall on a full academic scholarship. That way, there was no way they'd turn me down without having to explain myself to the whole family. At first, my parents seemed proud and even bragged about it. Then my brother started making comments. And suddenly they started asking me if I was sure I wanted to leave, insinuating that since my brother was smarter and had better judgment, I was sure to fail. I stood my ground. And in the end, they had no choice but to accept, albeit reluctantly. Since everyone had already congratulated me, college was my salvation. I only visited on vacation, using the excuse of lack of money to avoid seeing them often. During that time, my brother dropped out of college, moved back home without paying anything, and got a job in my mom's office. All thanks to her connections. And they still sold it as a great achievement. This is where the story gets good. I met my husband in junior year in economics class. The first day he sat next to me, and I was amazed by his confidence and sense of humor. When the teacher cracked a terrible joke, he leaned in close and whispered, "I think we're already paying tuition to hear dad jokes." And he made me laugh for the first time in weeks. We're incredibly different when it comes to handling conflict. I tend to avoid arguments and always come up with the perfect comeback hours later, while he reacts quickly and never lets up. If I cry out of anger, he gets cold feet and thinks strategically. If he doesn't respond immediately to an insult, worry, because he's probably already planning something much more elaborate than a simple witty comeback. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant near campus. The waiter accidentally spilled my water, and out of habit, I apologized immediately. Even though it wasn't my fault, my now husband noticed and calmly told me, "You don't have to apologize for things that aren't your fault." I felt like I had just realized it. We talked for hours that night, and I ended up telling him things about my family that I'd never told anyone before. "That's not normal," he said seriously when I told him about my childhood. "That's abuse. Lily, you deserve much better." When, after 2 years of dating, we decided to get married. We agreed to keep it simple because we'd rather spend the money on an incredible honeymoon in Europe. Since his family is spread all over the country and mine is from my hometown, which was an hour and a half away, we opted to get married there. After sending out the engagement invitations, my parents demanded to meet my fiancé. I agreed, though reluctantly, but I swore I'd never leave him alone with my brother. The strangest thing was that my husband was fascinated by the idea of meeting them. He'd heard so many stories about how my family treated me that he was incredibly excited. He even bought a professional recorder to document any nonsense they tried. All in secret. He went to see it alone, though I wasn't convinced. "Trust me," he said, kissing me on the forehead. "I can handle them." When he came back, he was practically jumping up and down with excitement. "Honey, you really won't believe what they proposed. We're from here. We're going to make fools of them," he told me, barely able to contain his laughter. According to the recording he played me, my parents and my brother sat him down, after the usual complaints about my supposedly bad taste, offered to support us with money for the wedding, but only if we accepted an absurd condition. My brother had to walk down the aisle before me, dressed exactly like the groom, to appear in all the important photos, and even have his own cake. "We're willing to help with the expenses." My mom's voice could be heard, but Mosky has always dreamed of being in a wedding. "It's not right for the younger brother to get married early," my dad added, "so this would make him happy." Then my brother chimed in, "I even have the tuxedo I want. It has to be exactly like yours, so we look like twins in the photos." From my husband's perspective, when they made him that ridiculous offer as if it were a favor data, he almost missed the boat. He had 1,000 insults ready to unleash. But something told him to suck it up and play their game so they'd pay in the end. So he told them he had to talk to me about it. But inside, he was already plotting revenge. Instead of feeling defeated by this latest betrayal, my husband's passion for revenge infected me. We spent days brainstorming plans ranging from crazy to more down to earth. In the end, we asked his brother, who was the sensible one, for advice. And he helped us refine the plan so we wouldn't get into legal trouble, but we could teach them a lesson. My husband went back to talk to my parents alone and pretended to be hesitant. He told them he'd already discussed the matter with me and didn't think I'd agree, but that he wanted to avoid family problems. He subtly suggested that surprising me on the wedding day might work, because I hate conflict and wouldn't make a big deal out of it in front of people, especially if they were paying for the party and I felt committed to giving in. But the best part came later. She turned it around using her own arguments and told them that because of my ex, I was very distrustful and always checked his cell phone and emails. So there couldn't be anything in writing about the plan for my brother to walk beforehand. All conversations would have to be in person at her house. She gets very paranoid and checks everything. He told them, "It's better to do it verbally. He'd have a heart attack if he found out before the wedding." My mom understood immediately. Mosky's ex was the same. Very controlling. We know exactly how she is. Thus began months of pure manipulation. With my parents and my brother. According to them, controlling us. But in reality, we were getting as much money as we could out of them. My parents wanted to decide every detail of the wedding. But my husband convinced them to let me have the upper hand on small things like the music or the colors so I could feel at ease. And so, we put everything together. For example, when choosing the banquet, we would first accept the cheapest options. But then my husband would secretly take my brother to a tasting and sigh. "Oh no. We can't afford the premium package. We don't want to take advantage of your parents' generosity." Obviously, my brother jumped up and demanded that my parents pay for the most expensive package. So they happily offered it as a surprise. We repeated the trick with the photographer, the flowers, the venue, everything. My husband staged each situation perfectly, taking advantage of my brother's insecurity and my parents' obsession with appearances. She always said how awful it felt not to be able to have the most luxurious things, knowing my brother would want everything for himself. The only stumble was with the dress. My mom tried to force me to wear a hideous one that didn't even fit me and texted it to me, breaking her own rule about not leaving any evidence. So I had to say no then. Seriously. My brother even suggested accidentally ruining the dress I wanted so I could be forced to wear his cloths. My husband pretended he thought it was a good idea. All the while, my brother awkwardly flirted with my fiancée, who played along just enough to make the plan work, acting as if he was torn between loyalty to me and temptation for my brother. In the end, we had the wedding of our dreams, something we could never have afforded on our own. And it was all sponsored by my parents. We called them back, pay for all the emotional damage. The venue was luxurious with fairy lights and flowers galore. The menu was top-notch, even filet mignon and lobster. And the bar had the best drinks. On the big day, my family's secret plan was for my brother to enter just as everyone was seated, at the moment the bride normally enters, so he could walk down the aisle in his tuxedo before I realized it, and it was too late to throw a tantrum. We hired professional security. But at first we kept it low-key. Just a woman checking the list at the entrance. Since my parents were seated, we posted our most intimidating guard at the door and instructed him not to let my brother in under any circumstances. Just as the ceremony was about to begin, my dad received a message that my brother was about to arrive. He signaled my bridesmaids to begin without consulting me and got ready to walk me down the aisle. As soon as the entrance music started, the doors opened, and I appeared in my dress. My dad froze when he saw me and not my brother. His face drained of color, and his jaw literally dropped. He looked behind me in anguish, but he couldn't see what was happening in the doorway. Suddenly, his cell phone rang. It was my brother. He murmured. Something unexpected happened, and without warning, I was literally left standing at the altar to answer the call. The guests were stunned, uncomprehending. A friend who knew about the plan asked rather forcefully what had happened. Through tears, I answered her. She told me I shouldn't be the one walking. And even though she was acting, it still hurt. I actually knew I'd do something like this. My friend repeated. What do you mean it shouldn't be you? Making sure everyone could hear. She ran off to see the commotion. Soon, my mom followed her as well, leaving me alone. My father-in-law came over as soon as he could, took my arm, we already knew he could come in, and said loudly, "It would be an honor to walk you down the aisle." Her kind gesture made me smile, even though I was still crying. I walked down the aisle amidst curious glances and murmurs, while several guests came out to see what the heck was going on. Already at the ceremony, everything flowed incredibly well from the moment I arrived with my now husband. But during the party, people kept coming in and out with surprised faces, and no one dared to tell me what was happening. According to what I was later told, my brother had arrived dressed exactly like my husband, wearing the same tuxedo, the same boutonniere, even the same handkerchief in his bag. The guard denied him entry, explaining that the wedding had already begun and the bride was inside. My father wasn't far behind. She threatened to call the police, claiming the guard had no right to block their way. The guard calmly agreed to wait for the police to arrive, certain that by then it would be too late to ruin anything. My friend arrived making a scene, shouting, "What's going on here? Why is the bride's father standing outside instead of escorting his daughter?" My mom and several other curious people joined in later. When everything finally came out, my parents tried to hide the truth, but those who saw everything criticized them harshly. Seeing them accused, they tried to blame my husband and called him. He looked astonished and denied knowing what they were talking about. "What are you talking about? Why would I want someone else to walk at my wedding, he asked. And when they insisted, he'd agreed. He asked for proof. They obviously didn't have any, because all the messages we received were just normal wedding details. When they came out with the fact that you told us not to write any of that, he just laughed. How coincidental that there's no proof of something so absurd. My brother, in a complete meltdown, sat on the floor crying and screaming like he was 5 years old. It was supposed to be my day too. He promised me that my mom was alone, and my dad's face went from purple to angry to white with fear. Some guests even recorded videos with their phones between the security guard and several guests. They had to restrain my dad when he attacked my husband. You're a liar, my dad yelled. According to reports, you said she wasn't going to put on a show. My husband, calm down, he replied. I never agreed to any of this. And the truth is, it really worries me that they tried to sabotage our wedding without my fiancé knowing. No one believed them. Everyone wanted answers. Why would the groom agree to something like that? Why is there no proof? Why would they want their son to ruin their daughter's wedding? No one knew what to say. And they ended up leaving with my dad, dragging my brother, who was still crying, out of the room. At the party, everyone spared me the details and let us enjoy ourselves. We danced, cut the cake, and surrounded ourselves with people who truly care about us. Obviously, my parents and my brother called me twice afterward. But following my husband's advice, I didn't answer, so there would be a record. My brother sent me frantic messages, blaming me for humiliating him, calling my husband a hypocrite, and even saying my husband was having an affair with him. Your husband had been leading me on for months. He wrote in a message. He told me he was only marrying you to cover up. Ask him about our private tastings. My husband, who refuses to let it happen, saved screenshots of all the harassment, calls, and messages, and then shared it all on the family group, maintaining his innocence and openly asking for help to stop the harassment that was ruining our honeymoon. He even asked them not to reveal where we were to prevent my brother from showing up, claiming my husband had promised to spend the night with him in our suite. My extended family promised they'd take care of it. And from then on, we'd had peace. My aunt later told me she sat down with my parents and had a very serious discussion about how they treated me my entire life. I would have loved for my family to support me on my wedding day. But for the first time, not only did they fail to ruin something special for me, I even felt like I could get even. Frequently asked questions. Why did they treat me like this? It's the question I've always wondered about. I think I was a surprise pregnancy. They fought hard to have my brother. He was their miracle. And I came along suddenly, unprepared for them, either emotionally or financially. But to be honest, nothing justifies how they treated me. Did they really think their plan would work? My husband and I think they never really intended to. My brother probably made a scene because I did get married, and he can't even find a partner. And my parents made the proposal hoping we'd reject it, so they'd get on his good side and find an excuse not to put up any money. But when my husband said yes, they got themselves into trouble. Story 3. My ex-wife cheated on me with my brother, the spoiled child of the family, and had a child with him. Now it turns out my family, the same family that always looked down on me, is begging me for money because I got a promotion at work. I, a 9-year-old man, who divorced my 7-year-old wife 2 months ago. She'd been secretly seeing my brother, who's also 27, for a while. And I only found out 4 months ago when she told me she was pregnant. At first, she tried to make me believe the baby was mine. But my brother's increasingly frequent visits set off alarm bells. So I checked her phone, confronted her about the messages, and she ended up confessing that she had indeed cheated on me with him as if she had no other choice. My family and I had been estranged since I left home at 18 because they always treated me like I wasn't even part of the family. And my brother was always the spoiled one. I still remember when they decided to throw me a party supposedly to celebrate an achievement of mine. But they started it without me. And when I saw the cake, I was completely fed up. That day, I confronted my parents and asked them why they'd never thrown me a party for something really important. They told me they didn't want my brother to feel left out after I got accepted to college. So they threw him the party instead. And that instead of throwing a tantrum, I should learn to support my brother too. That was the last straw for me. And that same day I decided I wasn't going to deal with them again. And I kept my word. I managed to pay for college with loans and jobs. And then, when I finished college, I went to rent an apartment with a friend. I stopped talking to my parents after I moved away to study. And they didn't lift a finger to look for me either. Obviously. Some time has passed since then. And last year, my brother reached out to me online to see if I wanted to get back in touch with them. Apparently because they missed me a lot. A lot has happened since I left. Like getting married to my ex-wife 2 years ago. I'd had a pretty peaceful life. But I never really got over my parents. So I agreed to see them. At first it was weird and uncomfortable. But when I saw they wanted to make amends, I thought maybe I should do my part. I invited them to my house. And that's where I made my first mistake introducing them to my brother and my ex. They met, started dating, and she ended up pregnant. I was happy because I thought I was going to be a dad. It never crossed my mind that the baby wasn't mine. But as I said, my brother started visiting us more often after we found out about the pregnancy. And although I ignored him at first, he started getting weird when he stroked my wife's bump and talked to the baby. My ex told me it wasn't that big of a deal. But I already had the inkling that there was something going on between them. When I was 6 months pregnant, one day I grabbed his cell phone while he was sleeping. And that confirmed my worst suspicions. The messages between her and my brother not only confirmed that the child was his and that they'd been together for a long time, but they also never planned to tell me the truth. Their plan was to wait until the baby was born. Then they would confess everything. And she would leave me to go with my brother, living off Milana, and the alimony I would have to give her. The next day I asked her about the messages, and although she denied it at first, she eventually accepted everything. That ended my 2-year marriage. And as expected, my parents sided with my brother and my ex. All their talk about us being equally important remained mere words. When my ex and my brother announced our divorce on social media and that she was marrying him, the whole family applauded. No one cared about all the damage they did to me or how they shattered my trust. Plus, my ex kept me with the baby lie for 6 months. I felt like I'd lost not only my wife, but also a child. And that hurt like you have no idea. My parents said it was for the best and once again refused to even acknowledge that my brother had hurt me. What's more, they even had the nerve to tell me I should be happy. Because they were finally happy. And that I should go celebrate with them. Obviously, I cut them out of my life again. And that only complicated my divorce. My ex walked away with a nice financial settlement in my car. All because my family supported her in court. Since she was now with my brother, she and her lawyer fabricated that I was toxic and controlling and that I forced her to quit her job. Even though it was her decision, and my family reinforced that story, saying that because of my sexist attitude and my supposed tantrums, they had stopped talking to everyone about me. I lost a lot of money in the divorce. Although at least I kept the house. When the divorce was finally finalized, I felt enormous relief because I wouldn't have to see those people ever again. Luckily, where I live, there's no waiting period for divorce. And my ex didn't object either. So I closed everything quickly and was able to move on with my life. It was hard to leave all that behind. But I focused 100% on my job and did my best to move forward and get through that bitter chapter as quickly as possible. And it was worth it because 2 weeks ago I got a promotion, a better position, a better salary, and even a new company car. I was feeling blissful. So I decided to treat myself and went out to dinner alone at one of my favorite restaurants. But I made the mistake of bragging about it on social media. And the next day, my mom contacted me to ask me to come check them out. I didn't understand what they wanted from me now, since they didn't even look for me after the divorce and always supported my ex and his lies. At first, I ignored her. But then she kept calling. In the end, when nothing worked, she went to my work and made a scene with the receptionist, which was really embarrassing. So I promised I'd come see them in a few days as long as she left. A couple of days later, I went to see the family and saw they'd used the settlement money to move to a bigger house and welcome the baby, who was born a little over 3 weeks ago. I suppose they also used the child support to pay the bills. But it didn't really affect me because it was small compared to what I was earning. And I could easily afford it. My brother wasn't there. My ex was asleep. And only my parents were there to talk. I didn't want to start a conversation and just waited for them to say what they had to say. Then, after about 5 minutes of complete silence, my dad blurted out that my brother had lost his job and that the pension and settlement were no longer enough. They told me they'd seen the news of my promotion and hoped I could help them because they were almost out of pocket. My parents had been retired for years. My brother was unemployed. And my ex obviously wasn't going to be working anytime soon. The pension wasn't enough to cover the expenses of a family of 5 with a newborn in the house. And I was absolutely certain of it. Still, I was surprised they had the nerve to ask me for help after everything I'd been through. I was so shocked I couldn't say a word for several minutes. But I finally snapped out of it and decided I didn't have to put up with their crap. I stood up and walked out without saying anything. As I opened the door to leave, I found my brother waiting for me outside. My parents were urging me to come back and listen to them. And my brother, to be honest, seemed surprised to see me there. I continued without saying anything and left. It was raining heavily, and the walk to the car was short. But I ended up soaked, and I was in a bad mood. This is where I may have gone too far, because my parents and my brother ran after me. And while I was searching for my keys in my pants, they asked me for help again. This time, for the last time. This time it was my brother's turn. He's always been quite boastful, and he gets carried away just because that's how my parents raised him. So it was even strange to see him asking me for help. He must have had a hard time swallowing his pride. So I do think they were in serious trouble. Anyway, I lost my patience and told him they'd better leave me alone, and that if they were really that strapped for cash, they could go out and beg on the street, because surely any stranger, without knowing what they were like, would have more compassion for them than I did. After that, I got in the car and left them soaking wet. I'm not going to lie. It actually felt good to do that to them, because their whole lives, they've only been mean to me. It's been 2 days since that day, and I'm honestly not sure if I did the right thing. My mom hasn't stopped texting me, and I feel so guilty for not helping them. I know I have plenty of money and that sending it to them wouldn't cost me anything. But after everything they've done to me, it's clear to me that they're only after me for their own gain. So, am I a jerk for not giving them money after they supported my ex in the divorce? Update 1. Well, yes. I decided not to help them. It was a big step for me because I really felt terrible for leaving them like that. But then I realized that they've done the same thing to me my whole life. Even during the divorce, they were the first to blame me. So why should I think twice before doing the same thing to them? I told my mom to stop bothering me, or she'd have forced me to bring in my lawyers. And she wouldn't even like how that ended. Obviously, they were angry, which is why my brother came looking for me a few days ago to talk. He told me that even though it hurt him how they treated me as a kid, he was actually better than me. And that's why they preferred him. He told me to calm down my drama with my parents. Any dad would do the same. He told me that I should help them instead of acting like a resentful child. I laughed so hard I couldn't hold it back. And I told him it was ridiculous. Instead of trying to manipulate me and treat me like that, he should start looking for a job and stop wasting his time on it. I think he got to me because he started yelling at me that I was just jealous, because not only my parents but also my ex always preferred him, and that I just wanted to get even by denying them money. I didn't even deign to argue. I just gave him the plain and said yes. That it was all revenge and there was nothing I could do about it. Then he got furious and told me he was going to come after me. That one way or another he was going to squeeze me, and that I was going to regret treating him like that. Honestly, I'm not even worried. He can try to scare me all he wants, but I know he can't do anything to me. So I don't even flinch. Update 2. 3 days ago, my brother came back to me and tried to convince me. But that didn't work either. My parents had tried before, and it was the same. So now it was my ex who got me. I honestly hesitated whether to answer, but otherwise they'd probably just keep messing around and I'd be wasting my time. So I took the call. It's truly shocking how conniving and cruel they can be. She started off very kindly by telling me that, as I already knew, she and her family were struggling with money, and that while she understood I shouldn't have to help them after everything they'd done to me, she wanted me to think about it and be the adult in this situation. She tried to tug at my heartstrings by saying that my parents always paid for everything when we were kids and that she'd also tried to be a good wife. I mean, yeah. Except for the little detail that my parents never paid attention to me and always put my brother first. And she ended up cheating on me with the very brother I was complaining about. So he didn't convince me at all. And I told him that although I felt sorry for what they were going through, I was already spending a fortune paying the alimony that he doesn't even deserve because he cheated on me. And yet he managed to get it out of me because my family had no problem lying and making me look like the bad guy just because it suited them. He started crying on the phone and complained that I was selfish and heartless, which I found laughable. And even when I told him no, he came out with the fact that my brother was right, that I left him with no choice but to go to the law, that now he was going to ask for more child support, and that he was going to sue me to humiliate me again. Honestly, I'd even be happy to see them try it. The first time, I was so devastated and depressed that I didn't even feel like defending myself or proving that everything they said was a lie. I just accepted. And that was it. Without arguing about the alimony. even though I didn't deserve it. I was never toxic, controlling, or anything they made up. So she has no justification for what she did to me. And she doesn't deserve a single penny of the divorce either. But at the time, I didn't care. And I just wanted to get it over with, even if it cost me dearly. This time, I was ready to fight, so my family could finally learn the lesson of their lives. In update 3, it turns out that, to my surprise, my wife actually did keep her original promise. And now that I've been promoted, she's asked for more alimony. But I wasn't going to let them see my face that easily. I talked to all the friends we had in common and told them everything that was happening. I even explained things from our past, because most of them only knew we'd separated, but had no idea of the real reason. Obviously, they were shocked, and I asked them to testify against my wife if necessary. Everyone agreed right away. I also told my lawyer that I wanted to cancel the alimony agreement because she didn't deserve it in the slightest. These past few days, I've spent all the evidence to prove that my parents and brother have always been horrible people, that they never treated me like family, and that right now they're only after me for money. Just because they found out about my promotion. I'd had enough and needed to get rid of them once and for all. So now their feelings really mattered. I managed to convince some cousins to share how they treated me like an outsider in my own home. And although we were never super close, they agreed to testify on my behalf. My lawyer was fascinated with everything we got and told me that with this, we could definitely stop paying child support. Everyone already knew she cheated on me. But my ex made sure to paint me as a villain and my brother as the hero who had saved her. Pure lies. And although last time I preferred not to fight back, this time I was going to make everything clear. And I did. When I showed the videos with the testimonies of my friends and family, my family was speechless. They had no way to defend themselves. Everything they said turned out to be lies. And it became clear I wasn't the bad guy. I guess they thought everything would be easy for them, just like before. But I wasn't the same as before. I wasn't so fragile anymore. And the truth is, everything they did to me only made me stronger. So, yesterday, it was decided that I no longer have to pay my ex a single peso, thanks to all the new information. And I literally think I was the happiest man in the world when I saw it was all over. I can't tell you how satisfying it was to see everyone's smiles wiped off their faces and my ex was about to start crying. But hey, I honestly don't even care about seeing her cry anymore. I'm fed up with everything. I thought I was going to come home and treat myself to a takeout meal and a good movie. But obviously, my family had to act up and not let me be happy. I was a few feet from my house when I saw my brother's car outside, and I didn't understand what he was doing there. But I went in anyway. And there was my whole family standing outside, blocking the entrance. I was in shock. I didn't know what to say. But I pretended not to be affected and said, "Get the hell off my property if you don't want me to talk to the police." That's when my dad started talking, telling me I should be ashamed of what I'd done. He launched into a lecture about how I lacked family responsibility and how I'd betrayed them by denying them help just when they needed it most. When he finished, I just stayed quiet. I didn't answer him or even deign to speak to them. I wasn't going to give them the pleasure of seeing me upset, because I'm sure that was the plan, to make me angry so I'd give in and do something stupid. But I'm not that naive anymore. Their desperate attempts at revenge weren't going to help them anymore. Although they still don't seem to understand, my silence surely made them even more desperate. And even though my mom demanded that I respect my dad and speak to him, they still couldn't get a word out of me. It was obvious they were expecting a fight, but nothing came of it. After more shouting, my brother couldn't hold back and grabbed me by the shirt. He tried to hit me, but my dad stopped him just in time, while he yelled at me that I was nothing more than a jealous mediocre who would never amount to anything. And honestly, it made me laugh, coming from someone who doesn't even have a job, still lives with his parents, and is still asking me for money to survive. I warned them that if they didn't leave right now, I was definitely going to call the police. And considering they didn't even have enough money for the bus, they'd better run in the next 5 minutes. They were so lazy they ended up leaving. Although my mom still tried to make me feel sorry for her so I'd give her some money. But even then, it didn't work. It's been almost a day since then, and they haven't tried to find me. And I sincerely hope it stays that way. Now, on to the next story. Story 2. It turns out I discovered my wife was cheating on me with my stepdaughter's father. So without hesitation, I divorced her. I'm 33. So is she? And all this happened in December. I caught them together at his house because I already suspected what they were up to. The guy was my stepdaughter's father. And for years, I'd been spending time getting him out of the house and calming his outbursts. I took care of everything: the house, the pets, the garden, and his 4-year-old daughter all day. When we got married, my wife made me donate my old car so I could use one of hers. And I even worked part-time at the law firm where she works. My days started at 6 a.m. and sometimes didn't end until 2 a.m. because of all the things I had to do. I tried to forgive her, but I kept catching her chatting with that guy and even making plans to be with other people, all the while swearing to me that she really wanted to fix things between us. He sexually and emotionally abused me, telling me that the infidelity was my fault because, according to me, I should have done something to prevent it. He used guilt and threats to force me into having sex, even though I made it clear I wasn't ready. He got pregnant after I caught her with him, and I asked for a DNA test. But instead, she went and had an abortion right then and there. And obviously, he blamed me for it. 2. I decided to leave last month and quit my job. Since then, my family has been supporting me. And honestly, every day, I struggle to even get out of bed or eat. We were married less than a year. I don't receive a single peso in pension. I don't have a car. I had to quit my job. I lost half my family. Her family. My stepdaughter. I'm homeless and penniless. If it weren't for my family, I'd literally be homeless. My mental health has been on the rocks since I found out she was cheating on me. Even when we were just dating. To her, it was all a lie or just a game. And I'm left picking up the pieces. He hurt me and used me. And in the end, I'm the only one paying the price. Milavier, who's also a family friend and someone I trust a lot, tells me there's not much I can do. What am I supposed to do with everything I'm dealing with? How do I cope? I know I have to take things easy. I'll find another job. And all that. But even leaving the house feels impossible right now. I'm struggling with severe depression and anxiety, especially when I'm in public. Even being with my friends exhausts me. And I end up crying in the car when I finally get to go home. I feel like I'm broken. And nothing seems to get better. I have no idea what to do. Update 1. My ex-wife is taking P to the divorce hearing. The title says it all. A friend warned me that my ex is going to take P to court as if he wanted to provoke me one last time. I don't know how to handle the situation. Some friends have offered to accompany me for support, but others tell me it's best to ignore them completely. What would you do? Update 2. My divorce hearing was finally today. If you want to know my full story, it's in my previous posts. But basically, my ex-wife started abusing me after I caught her in our bed with another guy right after Christmas last year. I tried to fix things, but over time, I kept catching her, talking to the same guy, and even planning to meet up with other guys out of town while receiving racy messages and photos from them. All this while she lied to my face and swore she had no contact with anyone. Always the same story. In the end, I got fed up, told her I was leaving and was going to file for divorce. And she still came out with the idea that if I left her, she'd kill herself. But here I am, still surviving. And she's already out of my life. I left the courthouse and even broke my own records at the gym. And overall, I feel fine. She doesn't know where I live now. She moved to another city. And she has no idea where I work. This woman, whom I loved so much and would have done anything for, took everything from me. My job, my car, my house, my stepdaughter, my marriage, my mental health, and probably my baby. Although I'm sure she was from the APE. She got rid of the baby when I asked for the DNA test. This whole year has been a non-stop hell for me. And yet, she still blames me for leaving and destroying the family. When she arrived this morning, I was already talking to my lawyer. It was just a matter of being present and signing the papers in front of the judge. I didn't look at her once. Not even when she wanted to give me mail from home. I just grabbed her and went on my way. I realized the AP didn't go with her. Strange because I'd told mutual friends I was going. Everything went well. Inside, I was all wound up and super emotional. But I kept a calm smile and tried to stay in good spirits. She looked like she was going to cry. But I never looked at her. It wasn't until I got home and checked the mail that I saw a note in the middle of the mess. The AP wasn't there because he'd gotten another girl he was also dating pregnant. I tore up the note and threw it in the trash. She had a husband who adored her. And he still hurt me. He lied to me and broke my heart for a guy who was seeing other people anyway. To top it all off, the guy hates being a dad. He's lazy. He even hit my ex when they were together. And every time he has his daughter, he leaves her with her mom. She called him by name. And she called me dad because she didn't even know the guy. Even my ex's mom cried with me at Christmas, happy that her granddaughter had me in her life. That new baby is just going to make life more complicated for the girl. I hope the baby's mother stays away from him as soon as possible for the child's sake. Although I have a lot of energy, today I feel very alone, and I go from feeling super good to feeling empty. Sorry if all of this is confusing. But the truth is, I feel really weird. I thought I'd be better. But to be honest, I wish none of us were going through this.